Good, Jerry.
It is Tuesday morning, December 1st, and we gotta wrap this up quick here, guys, because the NFL kicks off in a few minutes. They have the unique 10:38 kickoff this morning. I'm looking forward to it. Hey, I love football. Can't get enough football. I'm not sure there's enough time for these guys to prepare for the game the same way Mike Tyson prepared for his fight, though. A few bong hits, which amazes me. I'm amazed that someone would want to smoke pot before getting in the ring and fighting, even though it was an exhibition between a couple of 50-something-year-old guys. We also today are going to honor Sarah Fuller. We did that yesterday, but today there's some new developments. We want to congratulate her on her Emmy and her Heisman, and we're going to nominate her for a Nobel Prize because I think she can't win enough. Scott Atlas is out and the Trump administration, which is bad news for people with kids in school. That means Dr. Fauci, who's wrong about everything, is still around, of course. He's the ultimate survivor, but he's winning. Fauci is winning, and that is bad news because that means kids are losing. We'll get into all that and a whole lot more on the Callahan podcast today, brought to you by DCU. Why do DCU members love their free checking accounts? It's simple, no monthly maintenance fees, no minimum balance, no strings attached. What's better is that with direct deposit to their free checking accounts, DCU members can get paid up to 2 days early. Zero monthly maintenance fees, zero monthly balance, zero reasons not to switch. They'll even remove the hassle of switching your direct deposits and automatic payments from your current checking account. Learn more and make the switch today at dcu.org/free checking, insured by NCUA, membership required. All right, Cullinane is here. VB is back, and I'm glad you're here, both of you guys, but especially you, VB, because you get like 17 kids in school. And I have to say, if I did have kids in school still, my son's in college, which is frustrating enough, watching him do remote and miss out on all the experiences of college. But having young kids in school and try to follow all the rules, many of which are arbitrary, and try to see something like the Dr. Fauci now saying kids should be back in school, when you and I and everybody who was paying attention knew they should have never left school. But once they did in March, they should have been back by April, if not May, if not June. And the idea that this friggin' guy, this guy is still the respected voice in DC on the pandemic when he's been wrong every step of the way. There's a great timeline from our friend Jordan Schachtel, who goes through all the times that he publicly said it's too dangerous for kids to be in school. Now, nothing has changed since July, except the politics. He got his guy elected, Biden, and now Dr. Fauci says, you know what, kids should be back in school. You are a much, much more relaxed, composed, poised human being than I am, because I would be taking hostages if I knew that my children's lives were being played with by this bureaucrat, this power-hungry bureaucrat and all his followers. I'd lose it. How do you continue to just follow along with the rules and not snap? That's what I want to know.
It's the old follow the science, right? Follow the science. But again, what if they're so New York, for example, like I have a sister that lives in New York. We're not doing schools, period. It's too dangerous. And somebody did have the gall, some reporter from like NY1 or whatever, put up the hand and said, there's no evidence that kids get quiet. We're going to follow the science, even though there's no science, whatever, that says it. I will tell you this, though, Jerry, I'm in a bit of a unique circumstance because in my town, I've always said the question, the existential question about all of this is how much stomach do bureaucrats, town administrators, school committee, et cetera, how much stomach do they have for this? And the second that somebody sneezes, are they shutting the school down?
Right.
My town's gone from level 2 to level 4. They did it over the weekend. And to their credit, to this point, they have said, look, at least the younger ones, they're still coming, and they're still like the buses are going this morning.
But isn't the only question that you should have to answer is, are they vulnerable? Are they at risk? If they get the virus, do they end up in the hospital? Do they die? And the answer, as we've known since, I don't know, May, is of course not. Your kids and all school age kids are pawns from the being used by the diabolical teachers union. You know that. These are people who do not care one bit about children. We've learned that now. We've learned it through the election season when their goal was to defeat the evil orange man. They did it, and now you hear people like Fauci saying, maybe they should be back at school. He accomplished its goal. He got rid of Trump. Now they're going to say, you know what, maybe we should worry about children, the 60 million kids whose lives are just being turned upside down by these hacks in Washington and these politicians who are in the tank for the teachers union. I would be so infuriated. And again, I'm sure there are parents, I'm sure you know some fathers out there who are ready to just snap because this isn't debatable. We know it. The kids aren't dying. We know this. We know that now. Maybe we didn't know everything in June or May, but we know most, we know a lot now. We know Dr. Anthony Fauci is an absolute fool who's been wrong about everything. I mean, everything. And again, I'll retweet this again, this timeline of Fauci talking about kids in school every month. Every month he's had something to say, and every month he's been wrong.
Was that, by the way, like an ultimate troll job to conservatives yesterday by having Fauci with Mark Zuckerberg do like 90 minutes straight yesterday?
Yeah, right. And then on the same day, Dave, they forced Scott Atlas, the only voice of reason on the task force, they forced him out, and they celebrated. Now, we know now that Atlas was right, Fauci was wrong. You got to explain this to me. I mean, we've lost our minds. The guy who was right about getting kids back in school, who was saying how criminal it was to keep kids locked away at home in front of a screen. You've heard the stories. I mean, if you pay attention, some of them seep through the propaganda. Kids who are just, and you must know some kids who are just trapped in this hell, and they're not learning, they're not socializing, they're not interacting. They're being forced into this situation where they're learning nothing. And it's no big deal because the teachers union, the members have had a 9-month vacation and they want to keep it going. That's a fact. That the teachers union's goal is to keep the 9-month vacation going. They're not missing a paycheck. They're not missing any of their benefits. They don't want to go to work. Not teachers, not all teachers at least, but teachers unions do not give a damn about your children. We know that now. That's a good thing to come from this. It's obvious. But then when they turn around and say, you can't put the kids back in school, it's too dangerous. Well, when are people going to stand up and say, we know that's a lie? Enough. Just kick in the doors and send your kid to school. I can't imagine what it's like to have a special needs kid right now who can't learn remotely, who can't interact with anybody, who can't get any of the benefits that he or she could get from going to school, all because the teachers union wants to use this crisis to their benefit. It must be maddening.
It's worse. The part that gets me, like, okay, people that have been in DC government for 50 years don't really know what they're doing, or they do double speak. I'm used to that. I'm numb to that. Whatever. I'm not surprised. We all have different terms for that. Call it the swamp. Call it what you want. I'm much more interested on a local level, Jerry. When you hear these stories, like I know your buddy Shattuck had one out of Littleton the other day. Vermont did it too, where not only are they making you the bad guy for even thinking about having your kids at school, they're now turning your kids into snitches, and kids are going to have to, going in on Monday in Vermont, they had to answer questionnaires as to what went on in their house, who was there, how close they were, and if the answers weren't what the school wanted to hear. In other words, if grandma did come over, the kids were being sent home. I mean, Jerry, I don't know about you, but I immediately looked at my wife and I said, these are the answers we need her to know that she's got to give if this is asked of her.
Jesus.
I am now forced to teach my kids how to lie on this. It's like, do you remember as a kid, Jerry, when you were like 7 and you went to your first confession and you asked your father, like, how does this work? He's like, just tell him you lied a couple of times and you looked at the early magazine.
It was one of my first acts of rebellion when I was right. And I said, I'm not doing that again. They said, why not? I said, it doesn't make any sense to me. Why I have to talk to a screen when I mean, you tell me I sit here and I could pray. God can hear my prayers, but for some reason I need a middleman to get forgiveness. It didn't make any sense. But
the first time you went, you're like, oh my God, they usually set it up where there's this long walk and you were going down going, oh my God, is this real? I'm in trouble here or whatever. This is the same where the kids were going.
Yeah. Well, where I went, we didn't have that screen. For some reason, the priest wanted me to sit on his lap that day. And it was a little uncomfortable, but I never went back to confession. It was one time only, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Can you imagine?
At least we're learning something. In VB's household, his kids are learning to lie. So that's good. We're making progress.
Well, and now, instead of schools having metal detectors walking in, you're going to have like "Stop Snitching" T-shirts available at the door, because don't tell in your grandparents, because all of a sudden now kids, and in some states and in some cases, it's now 20 days where you're sitting out. It's not 14. Some are lowering it to 10, but others are raising the number because you had 5 people at your house for Thanksgiving. And this is where it's getting crazy, is the schools are using the Zooms, or they're using the kids to find out information, and they're prying into your business, and they're telling you, this is how we're going to get at you. That's what gets you ticked off. Much more Fauci schmouchy. I'm used to that stuff, and Redfield and all these guys. It's when they're literally saying, your kids are going to be the lemmings we want them to be, or else. That's where it gets tired.
And I know others have said this, but it feels to me like if you keep a 6-8-year-old home for a year, and
I've seen
learning with no interaction, that does permanent damage. You keep a special needs kid, an autistic kid at home, and I can't imagine the hell the parents are going through trying to get some special needs kids to learn, sit in front of a computer, or learn alone in a room, or in the kitchen just alone. Okay, you're going to sit and listen to your teacher. I mean, forget the fact that the parents are going through hell trying to balance their careers, their jobs, with helping their kid or kids learn remotely. The damage it does to that kid is I mean, we don't know it now. We won't know it for 5-10 years. But the rest of my life, there'll be stories about, that 1 year or more that kid missed school, set him back for more than a year or two. It's going to cause real damage, and nobody cares. I mean, let's be honest. The lockdown candidate won the election. I mean, they cheated, but we're all in agreement that the lockdown candidate is our next president. Scott Adams is out. Fauci is in, and for some, he's nominated for Time Person of the Year. I mean, it's a very legitimate award because it's AOC, Andrew Cuomo, Black Lives Matter, and Anthony Fauci. Those are your nominees. Somehow, Sarah Fuller didn't get nominated, but
that may still happen, Jerry. It's not over.
She could be a late nominee. But I don't understand, and I know there are these parents, these liberal, these Karens out there, the parents that somehow think their 6 or 8-year-old is going to come home with the virus and kill everybody because they're stupid people who don't read up, who don't understand the virus. But people who have paid attention since April, since March, they know the kids belong in school. They know their children were used for political purposes up until the election. And now, a week ago, they closed schools in New York, and a week later they said, you know what? We should open them up. It amazes me that they were ever closed. We know kids aren't getting the virus. Kids aren't dying from the virus and are rarely transmitting the virus. And if you're a 60-year-old teacher and you weigh 370 pounds, don't go to work. I understand. You're vulnerable. But if you're a 30-year-old teacher in good shape, you're almost as you're at no risk either. You should be at school. You should be at work. And I don't know how people like you handle it, BB. I'll give you credit.
But and I know we're an excuse society, Jerry. We're always looking for something other than us that we can use to blame why things didn't turn out. Oh, yeah, but Trump, right? This is what Andrew Yang said. When the Democrats realized that Trump isn't the root of all of our problems, maybe we can actually move forward. And they all said, quiet, Yang, because we like to go, but Trump. Now there's an entire generation of parents and of kids that have that built-in excuse for the rest of their lives. When they're 50 and they're not where they want to be, or they didn't come up, they didn't make the whatever team it is they're trying for. Yeah, because 2020. And they're just going to say, this is the thing now where this is going to absolve everything. And there were things that people could have done. There were steps. Look, in my town, Jerry, there are some people with some money in this town and in this area. They set up they pooled their money together and they hired like private teachers. We're going to keep our kids out. You just take care of these 6 kids. And town leaders went at these guys, said, you can't do that. It's too dangerous. It's too risky. And you can't take those good teachers away. But they were just trying to help their kids because they know.
And yet those parents will vote for the same people who are supporting the lockdowns, supporting the snitching. I don't understand how anybody could take seriously these public officials who have been caught over and over again violating their own rules. We know they don't believe it. We know Gavin Newsom doesn't believe a ban on indoor dining with people, more than 6 people is effective, is useful, because he violated it and he mocked the people who were actually following the rules. We know Andrew Cuomo has been caught without a mask, half a dozen times. We understand that all of them, Lori Lightfoot, Gretchen Whitmer, they don't believe in the rules.
Denver mayor, he's the best one. Because again,
the Denver mayor said, don't go anywhere, don't travel, as he's getting on a plane. I mean, they're all freaking hypocrites. So why are people still taking them seriously? Why would anyone take them?
Well, what can you do? What can you do? I mean, you can't force school to take.
I think that's the worst thing that's going to come of it. It is, to me, scary, the amount of cooperation these authorities, who are all friggin' hypocrites and liars and phonies and authoritarians, the amount of cooperation they're getting. They're people like you're talking about in your town who are snitching because they had 7 people, 9 people over for Thanksgiving. People who are shaming other people on Facebook because they didn't wear a mask outdoors with their dog. That is frightening when they know that the people imposing the rules don't do it. So obviously they don't think it really matters. Obviously Anthony Fauci goes to a Washington National game, doesn't social distance, doesn't wear a mask. He doesn't actually believe it is saving lives. He's just saying that. It's just for show. When are people going to understand that, is my question.
Well, the thing that gets me on all of it is that when a politician gets caught, whether it's Denver, whether it's Philadelphia's mayor, remember he got caught outdoor dining, whatever, but whether it's in Massachusetts, the lieutenant governor had one. It's the story that comes after it. So like in Gavin Newsom's case, right? What was his story? Look, I'm not perfect.
Right.
Oh, okay. But when you were shutting off the utilities to people that were having house parties, did they get to say they aren't perfect and everything was okay? Or did you shut off their utilities? That's where I get. The Denver mayor said there will be consequences if you do this. Then he did it and there were no consequences. Right. And he put out a laughing statement saying, what did you want me to do? I mean, it was either she comes here or I go there. Like, he never even considered the third option, which was the one that we were forced to take on, which was no one's going anywhere. That was never in his option list for some reason.
I think there'll be a few, obviously, there'll be things that we'll remember forever. You'll remember that phony Gavin Newsom having a dinner for 22.
What was the name of the place? What was the name of the place?
French Laundry. 22 people. The bill was $15,000. Some of the people there were from the California Medical Board, and none of them was social distancing or wearing masks. So none of them believes that's really that necessary. And we'll remember that same guy who was insisting that you wear a mask between bites of your Thanksgiving dinner. And we'll remember Nancy Pelosi getting caught getting her hair done when she's forcing all salons to close. And when she got caught, what did she do? She attacked the salon owner, said she was set up, and put that woman out of business. I mean, these are vile people. We're learning, some of us knew already, that the elected Democrats are vile people. They're hypocrites, they're liars, and the worst thing they've done of all is use your children. Use them to defeat Trump. It worked, but now they're reluctantly going to say, yeah, maybe kids should be back in school. They don't care about the lives of special needs children. That sounds harsh, but that's the reality. I'm sorry, that's the reality. And when people in Washington were celebrating the fact that Scott Atlas was forced out yesterday, was forced to quit or whatever, and Fauci was continued to be honored and deified and worshipped, I'm going, wait a second. Atlas was right. Fauci was wrong. Does that even matter? Or
to me, your anger, I put it somewhere else. Will you get back to Pelosi for a second, Jerry? The only reason there wasn't a second stimulus or a second, bailout or whatever phrase you want to use was because she didn't want Trump to have a win before the election. And my sister just shut down a business in Charlotte at the end of November. The holidays are coming. Because what happened, I mean, this is an all too familiar story to everybody, right? But they had that first bailout and they were told to pay their employees, keep them on the payroll, even though they're not working, whatever. She did that. That money ran out. And then she dipped into her savings to keep these people employed because you're just trying to hang on. You're just trying to hang on. And I remember talking to her a month ago and she said, the last thing in the world I want to do is tell people they're out of a job before the holidays. But if they don't pass this thing, it's going to happen. And sure enough, it's now a reality. Their last day is, I think, December 12th or whatever. Yeah. And it's because they didn't pass that stupid thing. And this is going on all over the country. You talk about, whether people care or not. The NFL story is, if the NFL doesn't realize now they don't care about the players with what they're doing to the Steelers and the Ravens, I think the horse is out of the barn. This is true in DC too. It's the same philosophy. It's the same philosophy. They don't care about you.
They don't. And it's so obvious if you've paid attention at all. Nancy Pelosi did not care about saving small businesses. They don't care at all. They're okay with the new economy. People like Nancy Pelosi and Gavin Newsom and Joe Biden are okay that Amazon is thriving and Walmart and Target and Home Depot are thriving, and all the small businesses, hundreds of thousands are going under. You've seen the angry restaurant owners that have made accommodations and built plastic shields everywhere, and the next day, you're closed. There is no science that backs up closing outdoor dining. None. Zero. There's no reason to do it other than these people are drunk with power and want to make it appear that they are doing their best to stop the spread. But here's the most infuriating thing of all. And again, if I had kids in school and they were messing with my kids right now, I'd be taking hostages. I'd be losing it. But what evidence is there that a lockdown, works at all? I mean, what evidence is there that closing schools, closing businesses, issuing a curfew, closing churches works? I mean, you've seen the spread, you've seen the spike. The places that lock down the hardest have the most cases. And it didn't work in June and July. And they turn around and say, well, things are bad in October and November. Let's do it again. And you go, wait a second. It didn't work last time. What are you talking about? Why do you have to close, stores and have curfews when mask mandates when the last time we did all that, it didn't work? And by the way, everybody's wearing a mask. This idea that we need to wear masks more, everybody is wearing a mask. Your kid is skating with a mask on. How old is your son?
6.
6-year-olds don't get the virus. They don't give the virus. They're on no danger at all. And they're forcing them to skate with face masks on. It's just so insane. I don't understand when people are going to wake up to this madness, but
Jerry, you and I we like a lot of the same movies. It's that speech from Jaws by Quint where he said, when I was the most scared, Chief, it was when the life rafts were coming, because then, you knew safety was there, but there was still that time where the sharks could get him. What happens when the vaccine, is on its way? That's when we really got to hunker down, Jerry. Don't you know there are going to be communities that say, we're locking down for 4 weeks until we get the virus. And that's the one that's going to do the most damage. You'll see.
And it'll be the most disappointing day in Fauci's career, because we're going to be done with that fraud. He's 80. He's been in the bureaucracy for 50 years, and we act like he's somehow some oracle. How many times can the man be wrong before we just tune him out? I don't know. Let's give him an award. Let's give him a magazine cover, and let's stop listening to the man. Again, I'm going to tweet it out again. If you're paying attention, he's been talking every day for 9 months, and he's been wrong every freaking step of the way about everything: masks, shutdowns, lockdowns, school closings. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And yet they're still, hey, we're going to talk to Dr. Fauci later today. Christ, it's maddening. And Scott Atlas slinks away back to California. He did his best. He tried to warn us and tried to enlighten us, and people don't want to listen, because if you say maybe these kids don't need masks, these, 3-year-olds, or maybe when you're outside walking your dog, you don't need a mask. People, what do you want to kill us all? What are you, a troglodyte?
Look, it's December 1st, and in case anybody was wondering, Jerry has been infused with the Christmas spirit. In spite of it all, Jerry, you're persevering. You're not angry. You're not bitter.
Fauci already said, we can't really do Christmas this year. We can't really do Christmas. Well, to quote, I think it was Cartman on South Park, F you, Fauci, F you. Enough. Enough listening to this fool and all the people around him. Unfortunately, it's going to get much worse, much, much, much worse once Biden's in, and you're going to have to wear a mask, in the shower. It's going to be a law. You're going to have to wear a mask in bed at night when you go to sleep. There's just no end to it.
It's just nobody saying F you. That's the thing. Like even me, I listen to you every single day, and I'm driving to my parents for Thanksgiving, just my wife and I and the kids to my parents. And I'm looking at all the houses, like how many cars do they have in their driveway? Like they brainwashed everybody. Like it's just, and I'm not going to rat those people out, but I did count many houses that had 7 cars in the driveway. And I thought
they are saying, that's the thing. Like you don't need to like post a video of yourself on Twitter. You just need to go on about your business. Like Fauci has no say in whether I have Christmas and who I have Christmas with. He doesn't factor in at all. So,
well, he does if your kids can't go to school. I mean, that's a factor right now. He's a factor in school closings, in shutdowns, in business. I mean, he said the other day, ideally we should shut the bars and open the schools. And I'm watching, I'm going, wait a second. You've been in charge essentially for 9 months, and the bars have been open and the schools have been closed, and there's no new science. No one's dropping some new study in your hand, and you just say we should close the bars and open the schools now when people have been struggling for 9 months, juggling, trying to figure out how to keep the kid in front of a screen, how to get to work, how to find someone to help their trying to find it, and you're saying now close the school, the bars, and open the schools. Where the hell were you in May and June and September? God, it's just infuriating to me. I don't know how people like you handle it. I wouldn't do so well. I'll give
Jerry,
you credit.
You're too worked up. We need to get you a little calmer. Can we talk about the Vanderbilt kicker? That levels you right off usually.
that is such a 2020 story. It is. I mean, we talked about it at length yesterday with Turtle Boy and had some laughs because it was just so ridiculous. And we read from the Sports Illustrated column about what it was a giant leap for womankind. One small kick for Vanderbilt, according to Sports Illustrated, one giant blast for womankind. And the quote, which is so lame, it's almost always lame when you hear people say it, this proves to girls out there, young girls, that you can do anything you want to do. No, it proves just the opposite, to be honest with you. Hillary Clinton tweeted that out, that it proves you can do whatever you want to do.
There's an equal playing field. Equal playing field would mean whatever you're doing, anybody can do any of it. So a woman could be a quarterback, could be a lineman, could be a safety, apparently. There's now a level playing field because she had an unchallenged kick coming out of half, and they ordered it to be a pooch kick. I don't think I've ever seen that coming out of half.
They didn't order. You don't really believe that. I knew you were kind of naive and vulnerable. I mean, naive and gullible, but you don't believe that ordered the pooch kick, do you? That was they just said that. All right, I'm looking at the video because Hillary Clinton tweeted out, little squibby thing lands at the 39. That means it went in the air 15 and 50. It went in the air 20 to 11 and 15. I'm at 26 yards in the air. I could, as I told you yesterday, I could take an empty milk bottle right here in my backyard and kick it just as far.
Jerry, go like this. You know what I'm smelling? SEC Special Teams Player of the Week is what I'm smelling. That's because that's what they announced yesterday.
We did it yesterday, and then comes the news that she was named SEC. And it's honestly, you got to double check and make sure it's not one of these
Babylon B, right?
Like Adam Schefter has a fake account that some people get sucked in occasionally when he tweets out things, someone spelled like one letter different, and it looks good and it fools people every time. I'm like, is that a fake account? No, she won SEC Special Teams Player of the Week. So some kid from Alabama, who beat Auburn. Goes down on kickoffs, leading with his helmet, drilling people on, like they scored a bunch. Obviously, it's Alabama, so probably made 8 special teams tackles, maybe field goal, kicker, kickoff, maybe a couple punt returns. That kid, he didn't get the nod because some girl in Vanderbilt kicked the ball 26 yards and ran off the field. That's it.
And by the way, we found out yesterday that she did a halftime speech. Can you imagine if she got the team all riled up during halftime, and then your coach looks over to you and calls for the squib kick? And knowing the score of the game?
Like, she insisted. Talk about a girl who's just full of herself. She insisted on giving the halftime speech and then admonished her new teammates for not being supportive enough or having enough team spirit on the sideline. Like, that was the version she gave of her speech. I don't think it's on tape. If it is, it'd probably be good for a laugh. But so here's the video. I'm looking at the video of the kick from SportsCenter from ESPN, and the headline is "Changing the Game." So Hillary Clinton quote tweets it and says, "Thank you, Sarah, for helping to prove that women and girls belong on every playing field," quite literally, and has a little football icon on her thing. That was that thing got almost 20,000 likes and 1,300 retweets from Hillary Clinton, 20,000 likes. Now, my simple question for you, VB, at what point did Sarah Fuller prove that girls can do anything? Just
first of all, I've never understood, like, there are certain playing fields where I don't care. Like, I don't ever want to give birth. I don't want that playing field leveled. Women, you've been saddled with that. It's yours. Sorry. You carry it forever. You do it great. I don't want any part of it. I don't know why women are obsessed with, like, breaking down this wall. I don't want my son playing football at this point. Why would you want your daughter playing football? It's crazy. And, I showed my wife and I were watching this story. My brother used to teach at Vanderbilt. We know the area a little bit, whatever. So we were watching online because we couldn't get the game on. I'm not going to subscribe to ESPN Plus to get it, but we were following it because I wanted to see, could she make an extra point? Would she kick a field goal? Whatever. And we thought it was kind of a fun story, whatever. And of course, they got basically shut out. And so there was no attempt to find out if she could actually do it. But at the end, we were like, but still a good story. At least she got to kick, whatever. What they're doing to it now, like, I showed my wife the Hillary thing, and my wife immediately rolled her eyes and said, "See, the pandering is where you lose me. And now you're starting to turn my stomach with this story." And that is what it is for me. They're going to turn her into something that I resent, which I don't want her to be. She was a fun little story because of a crazy confluence of events that this thing actually happened for one brief moment. That's all it is. But instead, they're going to make statues to her, and they're going to take U.S. Grant statues down at the same time.
Yes, and she'll be remembered as the one who broke the barrier. And I'm saying, but she didn't actually play football. She kicked. It was a lousy kick. She
unchallenged, by the way. Unchallenged. Could she do an extra point? We don't know.
I'm going to guess,
I don't know.
Her limit, they said, on a field goal was like 32 yards, which is essentially an extra point. But no, there had to be half a dozen kids, boys on the team, guys on the team who could do it better, who kicked in high school, who have strong legs, who could certainly kick off better than she kicked off. It was just for show. We know that now. It was just for Twitter applause and for getting someone like Hillary Clinton to salute this girl as some kind of pioneer. But if you're going to do it, you got to be able to, really do it. It can't be this, as Jason Whitlock called it, this make-a-wish type event where you see it all the time where the team manager or the ball boy is a special needs kid, and on this last day, the seniors, he suits up and they hand him the ball and he runs for a touchdown. The other team gets out of the way. That's essentially what it was. It was just an exhibition, a show where they weren't actually going to play the game. If she had to tackle somebody, can you imagine if she got drilled?
But even if she kicked, like if she punted or she kicked the field goal or whatever, it would be cool and it would be awesome and it would be a thing, and that's fine. Think about what Cullinane said, for example, Jerry. You played on teams, but more importantly, you worked at companies that have been taken over, right? Remember when you're in that first meeting where some hot shot comes in and he starts pointing to all of you and telling you how much you suck and how you're doing this wrong and that wrong. And remember the feeling you had as the guy that hadn't been through the wars was telling you how low you are? She's in that locker room at halftime and she's lecturing these guys that have gotten pounded by Alabama, have gotten pounded by Mississippi, have gotten pounded by LSU, week after week. They haven't won a game all year. And she's giving them the, guys, come on, we're not rooting for each other on an interception. That's why we're losing. Can you imagine listening to that?
And then they can't say anything. I mean, if you could get them to talk, the season's over, get them to talk, off the record, on the record, and say how ridiculous it was that they brought the girl in.
And Jerry, and there's still this insecurity about it all. When you go back and read the stories about that interview and the fact that she said she gave that speech, it's all given legitimacy, but because several coaches went up to her after and said, "I've been wanting to say that for weeks." So somehow
they're so scared that nobody was clapping on the sideline.
Why do we have to live out these lies? Everybody knows. Here's the bottom line: there will never, ever be a female who can play football, play it well, play it legitimately in Division I college football at Power 5 conference or in the NFL. It will never happen. They will never be able to forget play football, kick, punt, return punts, return kicks. It's just not going to happen.
And why is it important? I don't understand. Look, Jerry, we all have kids or nieces or whatever. I want my daughter to know who Babe Didrikson was. I wanted to know who Wilma Rudolph was. I wanted to know who Mia Hamm is. There are female sports heroes out there that have actually done the thing. Instead, we're being forced to choke on this one that was not the thing.
But also, hold on, one part of the story too. In fairness, we shouldn't be villainizing her. Like the coach and the team put her on the field and put her in that position. She didn't necessarily do anything wrong. She was called upon. I think the halftime speech.
That's the one there.
I don't know what happened there. That's like the most insane thing.
And she knew she was just a token. It was just for show. And she kind of ran with it. I mean, she might be a nice kid and a damn good soccer player.
Jerry, how about this?
She allowed herself to be used. And is she on the cover of SI this week? I wouldn't be surprised. Every magazine, and I want to do this another day because all the magazines, every magazine has gone total, social justice warrior. You pick up Runner's World, Golf Digest, and everything is about how they're social justice this and their community. Did you see the big exhibition with Mickelson and Barkley and Steph Curry and Peyton Manning? The whole thing was about historically black colleges and social justice and racial justice. And I'm saying, what about all the other charities that these guys generally support? They just forget them. Everybody's invested totally, and it's a larger part of it is to fend off the wolves. You don't want to be one of those.
Well, where do we go from here? Here's what I'm proposing, Jerry. I love novelty stuff, and I love gimmicky things that draw crowds. How about like the NFL? 1 week out of the year, you have to use a female kicker. You pick the game.
Why?
But you have to use her.
But it sets back, I won't say the cause.
But then you'll get real because then you'll find out if the game is on the line. Are they going to put her out there and can she do it?
There were actual references, actual comparisons to, Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson, that it's almost overshadowed.
He was an MVP. I mean,
he was a great player. And it took a great player to do what he did. If it was someone just out there because they wanted to break down the color barrier, just put out, some mediocre or not even mediocre, some lousy player just because of his race, it would have failed. The whole thing would have backfired. Kind of like, I don't know, Sarah Fuller is a football player. She isn't a football player. It is being forced on, America because she doesn't have a penis. That's all that matters here. She's not a man. Let's put her out there and celebrate. And if you don't celebrate, as we referred to the Sports Illustrated column yesterday, you're a troglodyte. That's the troglodytes who want to see her fail. And every time I tweeted about it, and kind of in a flippant, sarcastic way, all the responses were, the negative ones were, why are you so miserable? I'm like, why am I miserable? What does that make? How does that make?
What's
Can't
really
you just let her enjoy the moment? Sure, enjoy the moment, but can't we be honest? What is wrong with being honest? I mean, the idea that we're all supposed to get on board and say, wasn't that wonderful? A female who wasn't really on the team just squibbed to kick 26 yards. What? That's history.
Well, maybe you're not telling your daughter she has the potential to be an NFL football player, but you're showing your daughter as an example of this is somebody who's doing something that traditionally is not normal. You can do things that you set your mind to. It doesn't have to be that you don't have to
do that
literally, though.
You can't do that.
Yeah,
there's some things you can't do. Why is it a good lesson to say?
Right, follow the science, Jerry. We are told to follow the science. The science tells you this is never going to happen. It's impossible physiologically for a woman to be a defensive lineman in the NFL. It's not going to work. But so what? My daughter, I have a 10-year-old daughter. She can be an astronaut. She can be the president. She can be the Speaker of the House. She can be an international soccer star. There's a million things I teach her every day.
Don't
because you can do everything. The idea that this horse hasn't left the barn yet for women is nonsensical. And they're setting it back the way they're bending over backwards to pretend that we're living on Big Rock Candy Mountain at this point and that this woman is legitimately a football player. It's nonsense.
Don't tell her she can be vice president because then she'll want to do what, Kamala did to get there.
I don't want to get into that line of work. Rest assured, Jerry. I'd rather ever play football. It's less harmful.
But it is. If you're telling your daughter she can play in Division I college football or in the NFL, you're lying to her. There are some things she can do and some things she can't. And I coached youth football for years, and there were lots of girls. That's like one on every team in every town. There's girls on the high school team, and you could see them generally. Everyone looks for it and says, "Where's the girl?" Oh, there she is, and you could try to watch her, and she's generally overmatched. Some of them can hold their own, and there's a JV player or something, but eventually the physical differences matter. And in Division I college football and the NFL, the guys who play are the best. They're fast, they're strong, they're mean, they're nasty. Most fathers, I would think, wouldn't want their daughter out there getting hit, by Vontez Burkett. You don't want, some Jamal Adams, taking your daughter's head off if she's going over the middle. I wouldn't want to see that. It's like watching your daughter wrestle. It'd be uncomfortable. And there are things she can do and things she can't. And why do we insist on lying to little girls that they can play in the NFL when we know they can't and they never will be able to?
You said Times Person of the Year, and they've already done their nominations or whatever. What about Sports Person of the Year from the Your Old publication, right? Like they haven't played a lot of sports anyway this year, and all of it's been bad in terms of, public. No one can do charity work, and no one can do all the stuff that usually earns you that.
Every
she's not going to be a finalist in that?
Every award, whether it's the Nobel Prize or SI or Time Magazine or Emmys, all you have to ask yourself is who's the PC choice? What do the social justice warriors want? That's your answer to everything now. It doesn't matter what they accomplished. So I don't know. The sports award would be, you tell me, some
Sports Person of the Year. I mean,
Colin Kaepernick.
It's not even a question.
Finally, Colin Kaepernick will win the award. He's been,
he's won that already, hasn't he?
We should get to him because there was an unbelievable story about there's a bill.
Hold on, before we get off the Vanderbilt.
I'm not going to do it because I don't have time. But there's a bill to.
Oh, I know. I've known you for a long time.
For the concentration camps where they make Nike equipment, and Colin Kaepernick will not support it. He just wants those slaves to get back to work, make that Nike crap so he can continue to make money and condemn the United States for the way they treat minorities. But anyway, go ahead.
Here's what I know. I've known you for a long time, and there's a long list of athletes that you have hated. A-Rod's, I think, pretty high up there, but like the Claude Lemieux of the world going way back. And there's people. It's got nothing to do with Sarah Fuller. It's got to do with the media and this sycophancy. They are moving her up your list rapidly. And my question is, where does she settle? Does she end up at like the hundreds, or does she end up higher?
You're absolutely right. It's not her. It's like the people. First of all, the coach was an idiot for kind of going along with this. I think it allowed him to keep his job for an extra 12 hours, and then they fired him, even though he did this wonderful, groundbreaking thing and allowed the chick to kick. They still fired his ass. Anyway, it's not her. It is the media, as always. It's ESPN. It's all these phonies saying how groundbreaking, how historic this is, when they know it's not. They know they're just using her. They know they're just playing make pretend. The line that it shows young girls they can do anything, it does just the opposite.
That's why. But see, this is the beauty of it. That tweet that Hillary sent out is so phony and fraudulent on so many levels. It's a good reminder of who Hillary wanted to be versus who she really is. She wrote the book about how I almost walked off the stage when Trump was stomping behind me. Of course, everybody knows Trump wasn't stomping behind her, but regardless, the point is she didn't, because she never has been that person that did make the bold stand. She's only talked about wanting to make the bold stand. Here in this case, she's propagating this phony idea that, oh my God, she went out there and she won the game because women can do anything, when none of that happened. And she is setting it back by making up this myth and then running with the myth. Sarah Fuller's a fun story if you just let it be that thing, but they're ruining it now and there's going to be a movie, and at the end of the real movie, she's going to kick this 50-yard field goal to win the game and win the SEC.
No, it already happened.
That's going to happen.
It's called Little Giants 2. That's the good thing that's going to come.
Remember the Titans too. They run the
Kathy. I thought it was unnecessary roughness.
Kathy Ireland.
And I mean, I'm looking at what you said at halftime. It's just there's nobody like on that team or other teams or other coaches who really thinks this was on the level. They know it wasn't, and they're forced by the media to go along with it, to pretend, they bought in completely. It's just all for show, and that's what drives me crazy. It's not real. It's pretend.
I just tell you, look at that speech if you haven't seen it, and think about, like, you're a linebacker who's been getting the snot kicked out of you, not only for the first half of this game, but for the previous 6 games. And you're sitting there, and she goes, I want to speak, coach. And she starts with that speech about rah, and you got to support your guys. That line, do you remember like the Tom Cruise movie, All the Right Moves, at the end when he gets up and says to the coach, stifle it? All of those guys must have been this is ridiculous.
You're just a typing teacher. You're not God. That was my favorite line. Anyway, here's Sarah Fuller to her teammates as they're getting smoked at Missouri at halftime. She says, if I'm going to be honest, I was a little pissed off at how quiet everybody was. We made a first down, and I was the only one cheering. And I was like, what the heck? What's going on? And I tried to get them pumped up, and I was like, you guys need to start your team. You need to start your team on. My main thing was during the SEC tournament, my entire team, her soccer team, was cheering the entire time. It didn't matter if we were in the locker room or on the sidelines. I think that's what won it for us. So the cheering won it for us. Everybody was cheering nonstop. I went in there and I said exactly what I was thinking. I was like, we need to be cheering each other on. This is how you win games. This is how you get better, by calling each other out for stuff. And I'm going to call you guys out. We need to be supporting one another. If we get a first down, if an interception happens, it's our fault. We need to be lifting each other up. That's what team is all about. I think this team has struggled, and that's been a part of it. We really need to just build that team camaraderie where we can all lean on one another. It was an adjustment going from that team mentality where, hey, we're all supporting one another, and I just want to bring that to this team. Every single guy in there was rolling their eyes.
Jerry, are you kidding me? And this idea that coaches went up to, I bet coaches went up to her and said some version of, hey, that was really cool or whatever. And then they went over to each other and went, holy crap,
she said coaches went up to her and said, thank you for doing that. We wanted to do that. Took the words right out of our mouth. But
they did that after game 3, Jerry. Hang in there, guys. We can do this. By game 7, when you're down 30 at half, you're not doing that anymore. Last prediction time, Jerry. Joe Biden gets to give a State of the Union this year, right? Or next,
which is
in a couple of months.
It's going to be hilarious.
They usually put celebrities or people that have been in the news in their little guest box.
Yeah, Trump was a chance.
Any chance Sarah Fuller is in the guest box for that?
That's a good question. I don't know. She seems like she hasn't done quite enough. Just one squib kick. I think it's a little bit
one
of a
giant squib kick for womankind, Jerry. Remember.
Besides, she'll be in wherever in Norway that day receiving her Nobel Prize. So she won't be able to make it. It's a good question. Will we forget about her? The name Sarah Fuller. Will we continue to hear about it? As somebody mentioned to me yesterday, said, you remember Michael Sam? He was drafted by the Rams by Jeff Fisher on orders from the NFL because they wanted a gay guy. And then he kissed his boyfriend and the cameras were there. And he was a terrible player. He got cut. I mean, he didn't belong in the NFL, but they needed someone because, as I said, everybody's goal is how can we placate, the forces of political correctness and social justice. And at that time was, let's show how open-minded we are. Let's draft a gay guy. He'll make a big deal out of it. It'll be the headlines. The media will just fawn over him and celebrate us. And they did. He got cut, of course, because he was a terrible player who didn't belong in the NFL, but they needed this. They needed that moment. They got it, and it, blew away like a turd in the wind over a matter of days because he wasn't really legit. They needed that guy. They just had the wrong guy. The problem for Sarah Fuller is there'll never be that girl who can play in the NFL, who can play in Division I. It will never happen. They can do other things, as you point out. They can do most things better than guys. They just can't play football.
Look, I'll teach my daughter, and I've already talked to her about this because she asked about it. Me and my wife talked to her about it, whatever. But the lesson here is, look, the phone may ring someday, and you never know what is going to be on the other end of that call. In this case, it was, can you be a kicker? And she said, yeah. My lesson to my daughter is, when opportunity knocks, go for it, because you never know what will happen. But also, let's cut the crap with what did happen versus what you wish happened. And let's not make the myth become the reality.
I know it's a lot of parents, a lot of adults are lying to their daughters about this. See, we referred to these people on Twitter yesterday who were saying that. I sat with my daughter and said, see, anything is possible. And I'm going, what? I mean, it's like saying you could.
You don't think that long before Sarah Fuller, didn't you? Just
would you like to bench press 300 pounds, honey? Well, you can do it. Just put your mind to it. Would you like to dunk a basketball? What's your daughter's name, VB?
Eleanor, yes.
Ella. Would you like to dunk a basketball, Ella? Well, you can do it if you just put your mind to it. Why do you have to say that? They can't do it. She will never do it. She will never dunk a basketball. She'll never be able to kick a 45-yard field goal. She'll never be able to fight a guy and kick his ass unless it's Cullinane. It's it's not.
And tell her too, if you're gonna accept the publicity stunt, you gotta have all your shit together, right? She's only got 150,000 followers on Instagram. Like, you gotta take advantage of the opportunity when it presents itself.
How did she look on that? I mean, is she like?
Yeah, she looks good. She's pretty. Yeah, she's pretty. She should have 1 million followers just from the publicity.
I haven't seen too much yet, but has she given any sort of speech, Cullinane, or posted anything that says, by the way, in my very limited experience, I have a newfound respect for who these guys are and what they do, because seeing it up close is unbelievable. And you would know this, Jerry, having been on sidelines. I mean, how fast and how hard and what these guys do to make a living or to get a college scholarship is crazy. I would hope that she's learned some things here too about men in the same way that we're told we had to learn about women.
And there's a reason that they didn't return the kick and they didn't actually have a play, because she might have gotten hit. If they returned the kickoff and somebody blocked her, then I just knocked her on her ass, and that wouldn't have been the visual they were looking for. And it, if she were really a football player, she'd be getting her ass, knocked over in practice every day, and no one wants to see that. That's why it was all just so phony. But someday there'll be another girl they'll say she's, what it'll be? It'll be like, remember the Jets center? His sister was this big. She played girls football, and she was this huge 300-pound girl, and she was an offensive lineman. There'll be one of those who will be able to hold her own, just blocking. But won't.
I don't think it'll happen in football. It may I don't know.
It'll be like
Remember the Manon Rhéaume thing and with the Tampa Bay Lightning back in the day where they tried her in goal and it didn't work. I think at some point some woman will play in some fashion. I don't know whether it's someone that can hit a fastball or it's not going to be in football. There's no way.
It's like in
not
golf.
in my lifetime.
I mean, I've played with like PGA players in golf and LPGA players, and you know what the biggest difference is? Everyone thinks, oh, the guys hit it 300 yards. The girls don't. That's a fact, but the guys are much better around the greens. They're better out of the sand. They're better out of the rough. They're better putters. They're better athletes. And that
I know, but we were talking about sports, Jerry. You brought up golf.
I'm just telling you that people say, why
next you're going to go Danica Patrick on me? We're talking sports, Jerry.
Yes, Danica Patrick, same thing. They say, why
can't car racing? That's not sports.
They say, why can't a woman compete on the PGA Tour? And I'm telling you, it has, I shouldn't say nothing. It's not about strength and about power. It's about athleticism and,
just athleticism with your short game around the greens.
Yes.
Well, didn't Sorenstam say, she competed in that? She was the best female golfer, I think, in my life, right?
Yes.
And at the height of her ability, she played in a tournament. And didn't she say afterwards, like, this is never happening? There's just no way.
Like the 10,000th ranked guy was better than she was, and she knew it, and she was honest about it, and that's why you don't see it.
Well, you heard it. You remember Serena? They were talking. They got into that debate about whether Serena could beat a lot of the guys on the men's tour. And who was it that went on Fallon and said, "Oh yeah, she could," and then she was like, "No, I'd get smoked."
Like somebody else said, the 100th ranked guy would smoke her, and it was like, what? Yeah, yes, I'm sorry, that's true, but it doesn't make her. She's still the best woman in everything.
Right.
Why can't we just accept that? All right, we gotta stick to football here. We got to stick to football. First of all, I'm going to tell you about Shea Concrete, and then we're going to talk some football. All right. I know your Falcons had a big win this week, and you're still excited. But I love the fact that we get football like every day of the week now. But I tell you what else I love. I love Shea Concrete, and I'm going to tell you, VB, what Shea Concrete can do for you. I know you live out there in the sticks, and you got lots of room. They could build you a building. You can have your old precast concrete building just for you. All right, tomorrow, Wednesday, December 2nd. I'm excited. 3:40 p.m. 3:40 p.m. We get the Ravens and Steelers, a good AFC North matchup, black and blue division. These two teams, these rivals, hated rivals. I mean, it's going to be like 8-on-8 because so many guys are out with COVID. But here's what I laugh at, and I roll my eyes at, I should say, is when people in the media, the sports media or any media, they'll tweet or they'll say, give it up to either college football because they've had some issues. Ohio State might not qualify for the national title because they haven't had enough games. And it looks like this game with Michigan State might not go off, which will mean Ohio State can't be in the playoff. But anyway, the NFL has had their COVID issues. We know it. They've had games canceled, postponed. They've had games where one team didn't have a quarterback, which was because of the rules, not because of COVID, because, they had these ridiculous rules. The other four quarterbacks didn't have COVID. They just were in a room with a guy with COVID and didn't wear a mask, so they weren't allowed to play. We saw the results of that. It was comical. Anyway, the Ravens have been particularly hardest hit. I was just looking for the latest numbers on how many Ravens. Let's see. This was last night. I'm going to get how many Ravens players and coaches have tested. The Ravens Monday have reported 19 players on their COVID reserve list, including new additions: tight end Mark Andrews, linebacker Matthew Judon, receiver Willie Snead, cornerback quarterback Lamar Jackson is already on the list. So I'm going to guess, I'll check the line on this. I'm going to guess the Ravens are underdogs, seeing how they don't have a.
Well, Connor's out for Pittsburgh, too. He's on the list. They're running back. So.
A bunch of guys out. They postponed it. They delayed it. Then they were trying to figure out when they could play it. They decided the other one initially slated for the
Thursday.
And then Sunday.
Then Monday, then Tuesday.
Wednesday. So Wednesday at 3:40, they kick off. I'll be watching. The whole idea seems kind of cool. And the idea that this means, and some members of the media, typical people said, oh, just cancel it. The NFL they can't play. Just don't play. Just shut it all down. And I'm thinking, why? This makes it more interesting to me.
First of all,
I watched
Jerry,
a lot of that Denver game the other day because it was on Red Zone. I wouldn't have cared about that at all if it was a backup quarterback, but there was no quarterback. So I watched to see how the wide receiver, the practice squad wide receiver, Kendall Hinton, would do. He did awful, but it made it more interesting, or made me more likely to tune in. This game, same thing. I mean, it doesn't get lost amid all the other games on Sunday or even on, Thursday or Monday. It's just not a typical game. It's a weird time, a weird situation. So I'll watch. And you know what? The NFL it'll be on TV. They'll sell lots of ads. They won't get people in the stands probably. What is the latest on stands?
No, not in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, they got strict rules. Depends what state they're in. But anyway, it will go on. It will count. It'll count toward the playoffs. It will be football, NFL football, so people will watch. The idea that you would ever just say, this is too much trouble, let's cancel it, when the country loves football is just bizarre to me. Of course you should try to play. It's what they do. They play football. Let's play.
And I just don't think people understand the amount of money that is involved in each and every one of these games, regardless of whether people's there or not. That's one of the big misconceptions is, but there's no fans. That's not why they make the money. It's from the TV. You got to give NBC the product to get that big bag of cash, and they're going to get it. First of all, I hate what the NFL did in that Broncos game, Jerry. One of the great things in sports in my lifetime, the NHL gets this right. The NHL has this guy that he's paid $10 and he gets a free meal to sit in the stadium in case every goalie on both teams somehow gets hurt. And this happened a couple of years ago in Chicago where they told the guy who hadn't played organized hockey in 10 years, you're going into an NHL game in the third period, and he played. It was the greatest thing ever. They had that chance in Denver where they said, we want our coach to be our quarterback, and the NFL said no. Do you know how interested you and I would have been to watch that guy play? And that guy would have signed any waiver. Look, I'll break any bone in my body. I'll have more broken bones than Drew Brees. I don't care. I'll play. That would have been awesome.
It's true. The NFL,
it wouldn't have been more farcical than what they gave us.
I know. I agree. I said that yesterday. They should have let him play. It would have been fun. It would have been the most interesting thing of the whole weekend, and he couldn't have done worse than the wide receiver did. Obviously, they wouldn't have won. Obviously, it wouldn't have worked. But just to see a coach suit up and play quarterback, not kicker, but quarterback would have been wild. But didn't happen. We see the receiver this week. We're gonna see backup quarterbacks. I think every team will take the precaution now and have all their quarterbacks masked up in meetings so they won't be.
Well, they can't be in the same meeting, I assume, right, Jerry? They're going to be staggered meetings for quarterbacks.
It'll be like that one member of the cabinet that can't go to the State of the Union. They'll be stashed away somewhere, some backup third string quarterback. But I think it makes it more interesting in a way because football is always about attrition. It's always a war of attrition. It's always about survival. Who can be playing their best in December and January? That was always one of the hallmarks of Belichick's teams. They got better, stronger, and late in the season when it mattered. I predicted Brady is going to struggle late in the season because he's old, and that's what happens when you're old. And it's sort of happened. I mean, he made a nice little comeback the other day, but he's thrown 7 picks in the last 4 games. Anyway, this is what it feels like, is if the mentally toughest teams are going to survive this, and the teams that can survive without, fill the holes when they lose important players, including starting quarterbacks, the coaches who can keep their teams, heads above water late in the year will be the ones still standing in January and February. But in this case, the funniest part is, and I don't even understand this, you're going to have to help me out. I thought I knew how this stuff worked. Originally, it was supposed to be tomorrow night, Wednesday night football, and I'm all for that, all for watching a Wednesday night game. It was bumped to Wednesday afternoon, tomorrow at 3:40, because NBC refused to move the Christmas Spectacular starring the Radio City Rockettes. The tree lighting ceremony is always broadcast. I didn't even know that because I don't think I've ever watched it, and I didn't know that even we're going to do that this year because I saw numbnuts there, de Blasio, with the new rules, you have to make an appointment, schedule an appointment to go see the tree. And you're not allowed to just show. How does it work? It's a big tree. You can see it from like 3 blocks away.
I'm number 57. I get to go stand closer to the tree than I currently am.
Make an appointment. You can't have more than 4 people or something. There's all these rules to go look at the friggin' tree. Anyway, they're going to light it tomorrow night, and NBC refused to move that or put that on one of their other channels or move it to another night or make it later, make it earlier. And they forced the NFL to move the game, which is, and I've seen the numbers, the game is expected to get a much, much higher rating than the tree
20
lighting.
times. Oh, yeah. You know what's crazy about it?
Monday Night Football got 12 million last week. Last year, the Rockefeller tree lighting got 7 million viewers.
Wow, they get that many?
Yeah, I actually was shocked by that number too.
7 million watch a tree
Yeah.
lighting?
Yeah.
Wow.
What's crazy about this, though, you guys, I think, have both done it. I know, Jerry, you've been to hundreds of these things, and there's only been 50 of them, so that's a
tree
stretch.
lighting? I go to lots of tree lighting. I love tree lighting.
But when the NFL decides to do something, it is done, right? The NFL for the Super Bowl, they'll tell the host city, we own you for a month, and whatever you do normally can sit tight. When it was in Indy, when the Pats were there against the Giants in Indy, Indianapolis just became like NFL land, and whatever the NFL wanted to do, you remember, Jerry, you want to take a spin at the Indy 500, get in the car. Like you could do whatever you wanted.
That was the media party was the Indy 500, and you got to like hang out at the.
It was unbelievable. You got to kiss the bricks. You could do whatever you wanted.
The media buses to go to like a party had like 8 police cruisers to get you through traffic.
Yeah.
So the police would escort the media. You're right. They're like
you always wondered what would be the limit? Where would the NFL go too far? And it turns out it's the Rockefeller Center tree lighting that people go, hey, we're gonna not allow this now, NFL. And they couldn't. Why couldn't they do the tree lighting at 7 and kick the game off at 8?
How long is the tree lighting?
I assume it's an hour, right?
So 1 hour. You're right. It's dark out at 7. They do the tree lighting. The Rockettes kick up and do a little dance, and then boom, right into the NFL. What a lead in! But no, they forced the NFL to play at 3:40. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm going to watch. I think it's kind of cool. It's something different. I'm surprised that the network got to push the league around, but I give the league credit because they're trying to get through. They're doing what they can to get through the season, to get the games in, which is what they should be doing, which is what everybody should be doing. Instead of giving up and saying, maybe Fauci's right. Maybe we should shut it all down and go home and hide inside with our masks on, alone in the dark. They're not doing that. They're trying to live their lives, damn it, and play their games. And that's a good thing. And I, for one, will be watching. I don't care. I don't know who's going to play quarterback for the Ravens. I don't even know.
Isn't it RG3?
Oh, is it good? That's fun.
He's on that club. I
think he'll do better than backup. I don't know.
I think it's going to be.
Well, you know, it says right now, you know who's playing quarterback for the Ravens? Sarah Fuller. Can you believe that?
God, good Lord.
I'm telling you, she's moving up Jerry's rankings. He sees her name and he really goes, Urgh! I gotta get him a Sarah Fuller game jersey. I want that. Is your wife watching right now? Please get Jerry a Vanderbilt game jersey.
You know what? I'm gonna log on now and look and see if we can it.
That's gotta be like one of the big sellers.
I want to inspire my daughter, who's never even watched a football game. You can play football, honey. It should be like, why would I ever want to do that? All right, we're you know what? We gotta go here. I didn't even get to the PB&J Cafe. We can do that another day. But quick question. I know you guys have smoked a lot of pot, especially Cullinane, and I'm just talking about today. But if you were about to play an NFL game, or let's say get in the ring and fight somebody, would you ever say, you know what I want to do right now? Smoke a little weed. It would be the last thing I would ever want to do. Mike Tyson said he got high before he went and fought Roy Jones the other day. I just thought that was so bizarre. And so,
well, do you remember Manning? Do you remember Manning drinking the Bud after the Super Bowl? That last one when he was
when he was on the payroll, he was like, it was part of his.
But isn't that Tyson too? Because doesn't Tyson own like the largest pot farm in California?
Oh, is that it? It was a business move.
I don't know if it was that thought out or not, but I know he is involved in that business in some fashion. I don't think he spelled it out, but it has to be something a little bit like that, doesn't
Oh,
it?
he's just a bizarre guy.
Well, I
Tyson,
that's
think
true,
when it
too.
becomes part of your, I'm assuming it's like so a part of his lifestyle every day,
Yeah.
smoking X
Yeah.
amount. Like for him to then go into a big moment like that and get away from that, traditional daily experience would throw him off completely, I bet.
right. I have a friend who's loves his weed, and he says he doesn't know what it's like to go through a day without being high. It's like it would be unusual for him to not be stoned. And maybe that's the way Tyson is. Maybe he was just trying to, equalize things, even then up the playing field, because he was bigger and stronger and meaner than Roy Jones. And it didn't matter. They had this idiot scoring the thing, and it ended up a tie. And we're gonna have a rematch sometime, and I'm excited about that.
I'll tell you what, though, like I asked about this with Sarah Fuller. Does she now have respect for football players, seeing it up close? And she should. Mike Tyson gave one of the greatest quotes in the history of sports, and it was proven that night, not in his fight, but in that fight before it, Jerry, which is Tyson once famously said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
Nate Robinson thought,
I know.
What's the worst that could happen? I get beat. But Nate Robinson, no matter, I don't care if Nate Robinson lives another 100 years. When Nate Robinson passes away, the first thing you or I are going to remember about Nate Robinson is, seemed like a good idea getting into the ring right up until that happened. I mean, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
I really hope what we remember of that moment is not the actual him on the ground. It's that.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, I really hope we remember Snoop Dogg's commentary where he says, Nate from the hood, he'll shake that off. That is the greatest commentary to that moment ever. Did you see, by the way, we didn't talk about this because we didn't go off on it the other day. Did you see that Snoop Dogg wants 3 years and $15 million from a sports network? That is genius, by the way.
Oh, I assume he's going to get that. I mean, I think Snoop was the big winner that night. There's no doubt about that.
That guy is living his best life in his kind of, I'm assuming he still puts out albums, but like in his media Hollywood life, like he's just picking and choosing what fun he has. And he is living it up.
I'll tell you, and Jerry would know this too, but one thing that came out of the whole Nate Robinson thing is, did you see the Shaq tweet?
No, what was the
Nate
Shaq?
Robinson tweeted out, look, things didn't go the way they wanted to, but I'm glad I did it, whatever. Shaq just tweeted, love you, bro, because they played together as a Celtic for that 1 year when Shaq was here.
Yep.
He said, love you, bro, great job. And by the way, I remember that time you kicked that guy's butt in that nightclub in Boston.
Yeah.
And all I thought is, you know what? If I could pick one teammate, I think Shaq is pretty high on the list, because even in that moment, whenever Steph Curry tweeted what he tweeted about Nate Robinson, Shaq still had his back and still said, love you, man. And gave you, and by the way, don't forget, you're tougher than most of these hombres.
Well, it's like,
I thought Shaq was awesome.
Not to compare like a podcast, but like if you guys are making fun of me in the moment, if I go to defend myself on why you guys are, I just look like the asshole in the situation. Right. The fact of the matter is this was a comedy event for the most part. I feel like the fact was Nate Robinson trained for that thing for 2 months. The other guy has been boxing for 2 years. Like it's not even if they were the same size, it's not a fair fight based on that alone.
Jerry, I know we're short on time, but do you remember when Fox was doing celebrity boxing briefly?
Not really, no.
Well, they did. They had a little show.
Jose Canseco was in it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he was.
Danny Bonaducci.
Yeah, do you know why it ended?
No,
because of Bonaducci. Bonaducci got in there against Screech. And Screech thought this was a fun put-on thing, and Bonaducci smacked him. And Screech did the... no moss. I don't want any part of this. And Bonaducci was punching him in the mouth pretty hard. And they realized we can't do this anymore. Like, one of the problems with this is you never know how seriously the other guy's taking it.
Right.
Like at some point, didn't Roy Jones, right before the bell, go, I don't know, can this guy kill me even in his 50s? He had to have had that moment. And then after like the third or fourth punch, he must have said, okay, I'm at least going to survive this. But that's scary. This stuff can be real.
And they're both...
As Nate Robinson found out.
Rarely, if you're over 50, you shouldn't take your shirt off anyway. And you take your shirt, even a guy like Tyson, who's in great shape, is looking a little bloated. And Roy Jones does not look like a middleweight at all. He's over 200 pounds now, and it's not all muscle. You just don't look good, and you don't move the same, and it just doesn't feel right when you're in your 50s, even though they're very famous and Tyson is still capable of killing somebody. It just doesn't have that same feel of any minute now, this guy could just take your head off. Even though it's Tyson. I mean, it wouldn't work for most others. Can you imagine? Evander Holyfield,
Lennox Lewis.
I mean, any of these guys, they're going to look fat and old and slow and just over the hill. It's not going to work for too many other guys like it works for Tyson, just because he's Tyson, and he's so dangerous and he's so crazy.
Is the Tyson Conor McGregor thing coming at some point, Jerry? Is that where this ultimately leads? And we all buy it because we're stupid.
Right. No, that didn't work last time when McGregor tried boxing. It just didn't
work. But that was a real fighter. I mean, that was
this other guy's gonna get it. Who's the guy that knocked out Nate Robinson? What's his name? Logan
Jake Paul.
Yeah.
Jake Paul, the brother. He's gonna get the McGregor fight because he's got it's gonna be a publicity stunt. He owns YouTube. And that's why McGregor's going to do it, and it's going to be.
And they probably made a fortune on this buy-in because people were bored and said, I'll do it." And I don't know if they regret it. Everyone thinks the best part of it was Snoop Dogg just doing the color commentary, and maybe it was. But I bought the fight with Floyd Mayweather and Pacquiao, and it pissed me off so much. I think it was $100, and it was awful, and I just felt like such a fool. And I said, I'll never do that again. And I was sitting there Saturday night saying,
we all were. Maybe, are we going to do this? Should we?
My son had never seen Tyson fight. And he wanted to see, and I said, if it's really good, you'll get some on YouTube. You'll find it. We'll watch it another day. And I was close to clicking on it, but I didn't. And I'm glad I didn't. It sounded kind of boring. And I don't care about Snoop Dogg. Or I don't care about Jake Paul either. So we'll see. I'll probably get sucked in next time if they come up with another good celebrity fight. I think it'll be Tyson and Holyfield, right? Isn't that the next logical one?
Next logical one. But hold on, back to your point that you had to order that Pacquiao Mayweather fight because that was one of the greatest days in sports because it was Kentucky Derby, Pacquiao Mayweather, and a big Bruins playoff game. I forget which year, but that was great. That was 2011, right?
Is that what it was? Is that long ago?
Yeah,
I don't know. But it was the fight was awful, and I was like, I cannot believe not only did I piss away $100,
Jerry,
but I waited for a good Saturday night.
Any of your 50 greatest sports days in your life involve the Kentucky Derby, Jerry?
No,
what is Callahan's such a poser on this stuff?
No. That's great.
I went to a few of them. I went to them, and I one I'll never forget. I hung out with Bob Newmeyer the whole week. It was like hanging out with royalty, and stayed right there at the nice hotel, and it was an experience, I have to say. But I never got the bug. I've been to Suffolk Downs. I've been to all these tracks as a sports writer. My grandfather was the comptroller at Suffolk Downs. My uncle worked there, and I never got the bug. I've seen a million horse races. I never really cared who won. It was not my thing. But
so you're into tree lightings, just not horse racing.
Not into gambling. I like gambling on like football because I feel like I know the game, but I don't know horse racing. And people who say they do generally don't. It's a bunch of crap.
Well, that's a good day. If you've never done Saratoga, you got to do Saratoga. That's a great experience. That's a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done it. So this is where Callahan does. Callahan does this where he throws something out, assuming that nobody's done it. I got sucked into the Saratoga thing. Trust me, Jerry. Jerry, you ever do Bunker Hill Monument? Oh, you got to do it up until you get a Freedom Trail. You do it and you go, why did I do this? That's Saratoga.
Do you think I go to the Patriots game to watch the Patriots? I'm going for the tailgating, and Saratoga is a fantastic tailgating experience. So you got to. Yeah.
Just don't drive after you tailgate at Saratoga like someone we know. I did Bunker Hill to the top, 294 steps. I was going to run the whole thing. I ran about 20 steps, and then you gas and you walk the rest.
Seemed like a good idea until
it's a good workout. Go to the top. I never knew you could go to. I don't think you can now because of COVID. But all you do is go in there, go to the top, take a look around, come back down, and you get a good sweat. I recommend it. But the rest of the Freedom Trail, I don't even know what it is. People say, "You done the Freedom Trail?" I swear I don't know. I live near it. I don't even know what it is. Like the North Church, is that what it is? I don't even know what else is on it. You're the historian.
There's some guys in costume on Boston Common. Like, hey, look, it's Paul Revere. I guess we'll play along for 20 seconds.
All right, VB, I will let you go. Get those kids in front of that computer screen for some more remote learning. You know what? They're all going to grow up to be serial killers. I think that's the inevitable result of virtual learning and no interaction with other kids. They're all going to end up like Travis Bickle. That's what's going to happen. Your kids, Cullinane's kids. It's too late for mine, but hey, just listen.
It's a good podcast when you work in Jaws, All the Right Moves, and Taxi Driver.
Listen to
we nailed it today.
Listen to Fauci. He says, put the kids back in school after they've been out for 9 months. What madness we're living through here in America. But thank you, VB, and thanks to Shea Concrete and Allied Paving, and thanks to DCU, and thanks to everybody who's listening and subscribing. Please subscribe. Tell your friend. Tell them to subscribe. We need them. We need subscribers. Anything else, Colin? What I missed? The PB&J Cafe, but we'll get to that another day.
Fine. That's fine. I like to give shout outs at the end now, and I got to give a shout out. A comeback story that we're all looking forward to is Felicity Huffman. Welcome back to Hollywood, and we're all looking forward to watching this ridiculous.
I have trouble, and I'm sure you guys can relate. I feel like I would do lots of things to help my kids, and if I had that kind of money and I thought I could get my dumb kid into school, I wouldn't hesitate.
Nope.
And there's a fine line. I could rationalize it. If you write a check and hand it to the school, it's legal. If you write a check and hand it to the, water polo coach, you go to prison. It just feels like I could rationalize it. Say, instead of giving this money to the, alumni fund or whatever, the official campus, donations department, if I give it to the fencing coach, and the kid gets in, I could live with that. Doesn't feel like I'm committing any crimes. Well, it turns out you are, and you have to go to prison. So I don't, I'm glad she already got out of prison, Felicity Huffman.
Oh, yeah.
And she's tougher for it. Yeah. Easier.
And you know what? They should be able to work again. You shouldn't be blackballed just for trying to help your dumb kid get into college. But anyway, good luck to Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman. All right, that's it. We gotta go. There's NFL's kicking off in 5 minutes. We got the Tuesday morning game, and I can't wait. This is the Callahan Podcast. I'm Jerry Callahan, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.